Welcome. This will be my video on the brand new 2026 movie Send Help. I'm going to start with a review that's going to have zero spoilers, and then I'm going to get into what I call the thoughts section, where I get into all the spoilers for this movie, not for anything else, and go over pretty much anything I feel I have something to say about. So the movie is rated R, so will this video be. And I think before I go any further, it's important to note this is a movie that I have been anticipating for... See, I didn't note exactly when I started. I saw a trailer for this maybe a month ago or something, and I've said before, I have been so excited for the prospect of Sam Raimi returning to theaters. Doctor Strange 2, I know not everybody loves that movie. I thought he did really, really well. I was so happy. That was like 9-year hiatus from directing. At least he did some, through producing, he gave us some really compelling stuff in the years in between. But yeah, I have spent maybe a month building up in my head what I hoped this movie would be. I don't know. In retrospect, I guess I was setting myself up for disappointment, like, I don't know. Did I really think there was any chance that it could possibly actually be the movie that I wanted it to be? And ultimately, it isn't. It's better. I don't know how the fuck he does it. I'm so glad he's back to making movies. This is only the second Sam Raimi movie I've watched in theaters. Yeah, I was unfortunate enough to, so yeah, a couple of things. Let's see, 2009, when, shit, what's it called? Drag Me to Hell. I watched that trailer, saw the PG-13 rating. I was like, listen, I fucking love Evil Dead. I don't want to see watered down Evil Dead. Let's see, was it 2011? No, it must have been 2013, right? Oz, the Great and Powerful, this was after the debacle of the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland, and I just could not handle seeing Sam Raimi, who I'm an even bigger fan of. I suppose at this point I'm not as big a fan of Tim Burton, some of the things that, yeah, but I did really used to, I still appreciate some of his movies. I used to love nearly everything I saw that he made, and with Sam Raimi, that is still the case. Yeah. So I am going to keep it vague in the spoiler-free review, because this is definitely a movie I am so glad I knew almost nothing. Like, I'd seen the trailers, which is one of those things, if you need to see a trailer for this, it doesn't give too much away. There's a couple of things in there that I think would have been great if they hadn't shown, but there's some real doozies, to quote J. Jonah Jameson. Yeah, I actually got myself to rewatch at least 2 and 3. I don't have Spider-Man 1 on DVD, but yeah, yes, if you haven't watched any trailers, if it is enough for you, and I hope it is, we can definitely be friends if it is. I don't know, unless you're like far-right conservative or something. Maybe it's enough for me to say it's a Sam Raimi movie. It is through and through. It does not feel watered down. Yeah. If that is enough, then I would say don't watch the trailers. And I'll make the review itself. I'll keep it vague enough that you won't know too much. But yeah, we again have, Sam Raimi dipping into some, I suppose it's reasonable to call it mild to moderate criticism of capitalism, of hierarchical power structure, as there's some of that in the Spider-Man trilogy. He goes a bit further than otherwise in Drag Me to Hell. I don't think that one completely nails it. I think this one fares better. And the yeah, I think that's what I'll say about that. So psychological accuracy and authenticity are it's a Sam Raimi movie through and through, so sometimes those aspects are very high, and I would definitely say it is always true to itself. It never feels like it is trying to, you know, I'm really glad that I don't need to see him make a fucking documentary. You know, I think this is one of his best in terms of let's see, I believe on The Simpsons they refer to it as, or behind the scenes of The Simpsons, some of the people working on that refer to it as rubber band reality. This thing of like, yeah, at times it feels grounded, and then at other times it is completely ridiculous, you know? And I know I've said before, I don't think it always works in his Spider-Man movies. I am very fond of how he uses it in the Evil Dead movies, but here even more so. Like, there are parts of this movie that feel like, okay, this is very, very close to reality. You know, it might not be 100% the real world. Like, I would put forth, I have yet to see him make a movie that is set in the real world. Like, there's always something that's a little bit Sam Raimi about it, you know. The level of detail is quite good. Like, I wasn't sure how much he would be able to do with it. I'm still keeping it vague, but there's something in this that would seem like maybe it would be at least slightly limited, and somehow they overcame it. They found a way. And yeah, the tone, I don't know, maybe I've already said, but yeah, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say that it gets like Evil Dead, or at least not. Don't go into the movie expecting that. You will be disappointed if that is what you. But you know, yeah, there are definitely times where it goes very far out, and it's fucking wonderful. He is so fucking back. Oh my god. So the dialogue is also quite good. There are a couple of things where they use repetition to great effect. And yeah, like the various characters have their own voice, and you get a real sense of who someone is in part through what they say, how they say it, when they say it, stuff like that. And yeah, the direction, oh my god. Sam Raimi knows how to get you on the edge of your seat and keep you there. And this has a number of the things that we love from him. There is the Hitchcockian tension and suspense. And to be clear, I'm not making excuses for the shitty things Alfred Hitchcock did. And we also have some of the wonderful comic book exaggeration, which, you know, keep in mind, he was doing that all the way back in the first Evil Dead movie, long before he started making actual comic book adaptations with Spider-Man and such, you know. And the, I guess that might be about what I can say without spoiling, but there's other of the things that he likes to do that, yeah. And the cinematography, if Sam Raimi makes another 10 movies, if it is doable, I hope Bill Pope shoots all of them, because my god, like, it's one of those things where I've never seen Bill Pope be bad. you know, the man can film puppets. He made if we're being brutally honest, and now I can't fucking remember what that movie's called. Okay, Frank Miller directed it. It was right after Sin City. Yeah, I do not remember what it is called in the slightest. Sam Jackson, Scarlett Johansson, Eva Mendes, I think, are some of the major players, and then this guy, Gabriel Macht. I can't believe I believe that's his name. Somehow I just can't remember the yeah, I simply do not remember that movie's title. But yeah, Bill Pope filmed that, made it more watchable than it would otherwise have been. Still a shitty movie, don't get me wrong, but he did what he could, and that is one thing. You know, there was some years back I watched it right after watching Sin City 1, and like, yeah, throughout I couldn't help but think, wow, this is so much worse in all respects except for the cinematography, because like Bill Pope is a better cinematographer than fucking Robert Rodriguez, no offense. Still a big fan of Robert Rodriguez, but maybe sometimes it wouldn't be terrible if he got other people to help with some of the things that I maintain that the thing he does best is direct. When other people write for him, it helps tremendously, you know. Sin City, From Dusk Till Dawn. Anyway. Yeah, so the God, the photography of this movie, my okay, so there's several gorgeous sweeping shots, like holy shit. And just yeah, even when there isn't that much happening, it is still beautiful to look at, you know. That's something I really do appreciate about Sam Raimi. Like, as soon as he was able to, you know, on some of the earliest, you know, he wasn't working with Bill Pope from the very start, but once he got a chance to, you know, and to be clear, I do think there's a lot to love about the cinematography of his early work as well. But once he was able to work with Bill Pope, my God, like I would say probably the best shot movies of Sam Raimi's directorial career are the ones Bill Pope shot for him. And yeah, I think that covers that. The editing is quite good. There's several parts where, yeah, some very careful editing to make it really pop. And it's also trimmed down very nicely. I didn't really feel... There's a couple of things in the trailer that did not appear in the movie. And not like stuff where I was like, where the fuck was that? You know, but it's one of those things. I end up wondering if they shot it for the trailer, or if maybe it was in an early part of the movie and then they, you know, went over it and were like, we actually don't need this in here, but it's good for the trailer and the gander, and it does really work. I'm glad it was in the trailer because it did help get me even more excited, and then when it wasn't in the movie, it didn't feel like it was missing. But yeah, the Sam Raimi's visual flair is alive and well. If that was something you felt was missing, I respect your opinion from something like Doctor Strange 2. You know, I appreciate that was definitely, yeah. I will say, I would prefer if Sam Raimi make his own stuff rather than try to fit into a box of like a franchise. He's one of the only directors that I'm still like, no, I don't care if they're not part of a franchise, I will fucking watch it, you know. Yeah, years ago, I watched stuff that wasn't in franchise way more than in theaters. I mean, I still do okay at watching stuff that's not in franchise, but not as much recent stuff, at least not in theaters, sometimes streaming and such. But yeah, Sam Raimi, short list, but you know, him, Chris Nolan, yeah, Sam Raimi is 66 years old now. I don't know how he still has the energy for this, but yeah, this feels like it was made by, you know, 20-something Sam Raimi, you know. Yeah, it has like it's not constantly as fast-paced as some of his earlier stuff, but it never stands still, at least not in my opinion. I appreciate some people felt that it, you know, I saw at least one reviewer say they felt it was drawn out, it was like excessive. I respectfully disagree. I thought that, see, I think it's really important to distinguish between, is it boring to watch, or are we watching characters that are perhaps bored? Because in my opinion, there's a tremendous difference. A talented director can bore the character without boring the audience, and I very much thought that happened here. And it is important for the movie to work that it is not constantly, you know, moving fast, you know. And yeah, Raimi is just really fucking good at this thing of like, I mean, listen, he did it on Spider-Man as well, and other of his stuff, you know, this thing of like, we have something almost kind of banal, and then suddenly there's this burst of energy, and yeah, like, in my opinion, he's one of the best at doing something like that and really making it work. But yeah, there is at least one montage that, though it is not exactly an Evil Dead style montage, it definitely is very much Sam Raimi. And I think that might be about what I can say. But yeah, I appreciate, like, there are aspects of his films that are still very much like the way he made movies, you know, yeah, fucking 40 years ago. Jesus Christ. 40 plus, really. Um, where a lot of filmmakers don't do those same kinds of things. I really appreciate the way he is unashamed of milking something. If he knows he's got something good, he will really, like, just get every single drop out of that fucker. He's not just gonna be like, okay, I think I made my point and move on. Like, there are things here that go on for longer that some people are necessarily gonna want. And I think, you know, creative expression is sometimes about giving us what we don't know we need more than what we want. I'm not saying everybody needs this, but I fucking did. And it's also, you know, if you watch a lot of current films made by younger filmmakers, yeah, it might also feel, you know, he has not really fully abandoned the 80s excess, and he's honestly one of the only directors that, at least that I watch, that are still this willing to. Cronenberg is another one. You know, they don't really tone these things down when a lot of yeah, I am going to move on. So yeah, the production value, set design, locations, costumes, and makeup are incredible and really convey a lot about character and situation. You know, we see, for example, where someone works, where they live, that sort of thing, and get a real strong sense of, yeah, the sound design. I'm sorry. Nobody does sound design like, okay, so shit, I feel like I'm getting a little too fucking close to auteur theory here. Sam Raimi's movies, he always manages to get someone who really nails and just lets them loose when it comes to sound design. Like, some of the, oh my god, it just really, it burrows in your fucking brain, the sounds you hear in his movies, you know. The characters, I was genuinely impressed. I think this might be the one where... So obviously, I want to make it clear. I'm not saying that these are the most memorable characters that he's ever done, though I would argue in some ways they come close, and they definitely are very high up there. And that's also, like, with Sam Raimi, I genuinely, every movie that he's directed that I've watched has at least one character that you just fucking remember afterwards, which cannot be said of many of his contemporaries. And yeah, like, I think these are some of the ones where he does the best job at straddling, this thing of, like, because he loves the weird shit. That is something that is very true of Sam Raimi and has been clear from the very start. Like, even some of the movies that are the least, like, I would say A Simple Plan, very, very little odd stuff in that. But he still managed to fit in at least a little bit where it's like, what? And yeah. So he likes his characters to be a little off in one way or another. And that can sometimes go against, having characters that are a little easier for us to get some handle on. I think Darkman is one of the ones where he does it the best. Yeah, this one joins the ranks there. And right, shit, for those who haven't been watching my other recent videos, because I've brought this movie up enough as I was talking about being, anticipating it. I have now rewatched nearly every Sam Raimi movie I've ever seen. I even managed to get through Oz the Great and Powerful, even though, honestly, I think I went too easy on that movie when I did a review. I think I was just so fucking excited about, because that was back when Doctor Strange 2 was about to hit theaters. So I was, yeah, but I'm not sure I'd ever watch that movie a third time. My God, he is so irritating. And I don't even think I have to say who I'm talking about. It's one of the actors in the movie. I mean, you almost definitely know who I'm referring to. Possibly even if you haven't watched the movie. If you just look at the cast list, you probably know. Now, I think that does... I'm talking about the one who also played Harry Osborn. My God, he is irritating. I'm going back and forth on, like, on the one hand, I kind of do want to watch, what's it called, 127 Hours? Because fucking Danny Boyle. But, like, more of the actor whose name I don't even remember right now. But yeah, moving on. So yeah, I have nearly every movie I've watched by Sam Raimi ever fresh in my memory. Really, the only ones I was not able to... So yeah, Spider-Man 1 and The Quick and the Dead. Now, I think that does pretty well cover the... Yeah, so that brings us to the acting. And with a movie like this, the question that comes up is, of course, who is the Bruce Campbell? Because he does not star in this movie. And I'm delighted to say there's more than one, as is the case with at least one other movie by Sam Raimi, and they do such an amazing job. I'm not going to give away who before I get into the spoilers section, the thoughts section. What I will say is, I loved the movie Not Okay so much in part because of Dylan O'Brien, but also in large part because of Zoe Deutsch, that I actually rewatched it just yesterday to have, you know, his performance fresh in my mind. And my God, that movie just gets... I think I might have watched it 3 times by now, and it just gets better with every viewing. My God, that really nailed it. But I'm not going to go off on a whole thing here because I did an entire video on it. You know, I said everything I have to say about the movie, other than now realizing it just gets better and better, for me at least. Dylan O'Brien. I haven't seen him in anything other than these two. I would like to. In both of these, he plays the asshole so well. Like, he is just... And like, I've seen a little bit of interview with him. He's in real life, he's not out of character. He's not like despicable at all. If you know, in interview, I don't know anything about his personal life, but my God, he does so well here in these two movies. And it's, you know, part of it is that it's like with Glenn Powell and Chris Evans, you know, they have that, you know, conventionally attractive appearance, and like they've realized at some point, hey, if I like smirk, I look like the biggest asshole in the fucking universe. And I'm really, really glad that they've been willing to share that with the rest of us, because holy shit, they are just so wonderfully hateable. Like, honestly, Chris Evans, I'm not saying there's nothing else good about Not Another Teen Movie, but he was definitely... Honestly, him and the female lead, she also really, really does a good job in that. But they were easily my favorite things about, you know, and I appreciated some of the references and cameos, for sure. Now, I would be remiss to not mention Rachel McAdams, who I have to see in more. I saw at least one person say this is her best work since Mean Girls. I would not rule that out. Honestly, I think I will at some point watch that movie. Yeah, it feels so wrong to say, but other than this, like, it's really just, you know, the Doctor Strange movies and the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes movies and Red Eye. Like, I gotta see her in more. Yeah. Drop me recommendations down below if yeah. But I'm really, really glad that here she gets to really show how much she's actually capable of, because there's some movies where it's like, that didn't really need to be. Like, she's good in all the movies I've just mentioned. I would say Red Eye is one where she does also, to an extent, get to show she's capable of more, you know, but yeah, the Sherlock Holmes movies and Doctor Strange movies, she does well with what she's given, but that's not, yeah, she's not given much. And yeah, like, holy shit. Like, if this was the first thing I watched by her, I would probably want to mainline her filmography up to this point. And I'm honestly not entirely ruling that out. Yeah. Am I remembering right? Did she do a movie with Domhnall Gleeson? Because I'm getting more and more into his work as well. Yeah, and it's so fucking cool that she's been working for over 20 years now. And yeah. I guess at this point I don't even have to say out loud, this is my favorite performance of hers. I'm not sure. I guess it's possible there's at least one other movie that matches or maybe even tops or show this. But yeah, Jesus Christ. That was also something, like, the moment that I saw her in the trailer, I was like, because Sam Raimi is one of those directors where if he sees something really spectacular in someone he works with, he will bring them back. That's something I had totally forgotten. For example, The Gift, that's where he found his Aunt May and J. Jonah Jameson. And that movie also brings back, at least one actor from A Simple Plan. Speaking of, there's at least one actor from A Simple Plan who also pops up in at least one Spider-Man movie, but yeah, he really appreciated that she could nail this. And I gotta say, there's a lot of actors, currently living, and honestly, I'm not even gonna compare them to the dead ones because they're not that energetic these days, but there's not that many who could pull all this off. Samara Weaving would also be able to do a lot, at least, of what McAdams does here. Yeah, I think that brings us to... So, these special effects, it is still the case that Sam Raimi, he is comfortable using CG, but by now it has also gotten to a point where, well, the CG, if not 100% photorealistic, very, very close. I do maintain, I think he leaned too heavily on it in something like the first Spider-Man and The Gift, because it just wasn't completely there, and it sucks, and I get that they could not have achieved those visuals with anything other than that. They simply would not have been able to do them with practical effects. With that said, they do still do practical effects when they can. He is also, thankfully, one of the directors who has not left that behind. I really think it's too bad. There's so many filmmakers who just don't appreciate what you can do with practical effects. And I know a lot of it is studio pressure. Sometimes it's quicker to do on not necessarily quicker, but less time on set is what I mean. Yeah, I think that does more or less cover... I did want to note, so I already mentioned Hitchcockian tension and suspense. We also have the fantastic morbid humor that Sam Raimi clearly took a lot of inspiration from Hitchcock for. There was one part in particular which I'm going to mention. I'm going to go into in the spoiler section, in the thought section, but yeah, we have this thing of like setup and payoff, which I appreciate today. I don't know, maybe it's just what I watch today. It is fairly common, but Sam Raimi was doing it all the way back on The Evil Dead at a time when horror movies for young people really didn't give a shit about things like that. They thought, okay, no, we just throw a bunch of blood and guts on the screen and people will watch. And success of the Friday the 13th franchise proves that they did know what would make money. That is, every time I bring up those movies, I feel the need to just briefly say, I can watch any of them. Yes, even the fucking remake, and have an enjoyable enough time. They're fast food. They're not anything, but it's just, I've always been frustrated that they were, in my opinion, the original 1978 Halloween so thoroughly blows them out of the water. And I appreciate that movie got sequels, but they're largely shit. And just, yeah, there was a while where I would talk to people and, who loved horror movies, and they knew Friday the 13th. They knew, okay, I'm not going to blame them for knowing A Nightmare on Elm Street, because those movies genuinely are. Like, other than the, let's see, Freddy's Dead and the remake, other than that, those are really solid. And the fifth one is a little weird for I didn't think that one completely worked. But other than that, they are really, really solid movies, you know. But 1978's Halloween, I really think is so much better than Friday the 13th, and I've gotten so off topic. Let's get back. But yeah, he's still doing really, really solid setup and payoff. And I will say there was a non-zero number of times in this where something was set up and I was not super surprised by the payoff. Like, I could kind of see it coming. But then there were others where I was completely way off as far as what would be the payoff. And I really appreciate there was at least one thing where I didn't realize something was a setup until the payoff came, which honestly kind of reminded me of Nolan. You know, that Raimi and Nolan both really nail this thing of having a memorable enough setup that, because it's crucial, when you have the payoff, if there's very many people in the audience who are like, what's that? That's fucked. That really needs to not happen. You know, I mean, obviously, I don't know, maybe some people just didn't pay close enough attention or whatever. And that's something else. He still really rewards, you know, audience members paying close attention to his movies. He does not. I really appreciate it. I don't think there was any of that. Does it have a name? Netflix dialogue of this shitty fucking cinema killing goddamn thing of having characters just say out loud what is happening, what they are doing, and why. And like, listen, I get it. We all understand the concept of second screen viewing. Can you maybe just fucking not? Like, people are okay. Like, has literally any person actually come up to you and said, hey, I fucked up my own viewing experience. Can you fuck up everybody else's for me personally? Because, like, listen, Rewind exists. You know, if you're streaming a movie, you can just go back and rewatch it. Like, listen, I've fucked viewing experience of my own sometimes, you know. I'm not telling filmmakers that they need to, and again, I'm not saying, I'm really not sure there's anyone who's actually said, oh, hey, I didn't really understand that thing in the movie where it was actually properly set up and they just didn't pay close enough to, like actually said that to, you know, filmmakers, studios, anything like that. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. I'm not ragging on anyone who has, like, what's the word? Oh shit, is that offensive to say? I don't mean it to be. I'm not trying to be an asshole to people who struggle to pay close attention to you know, I have ADHD myself, and I actually do have, I'm not saying that as like a fucking thing. I have the diagnosis. But yeah. There was not a single time in this where I was like, wait, when was that set up? Like, everything was, there's no, everything, every payoff has a setup, and the various setups have a payoff. There was at least one where it's such, there's so much running time between the setup and the payoff. I genuinely, I hadn't forgotten, but I would not have, like, if someone had paused the movie right before the payoff came, I would probably just have figured, yeah, there's not actually going to be a payoff. That was just like a one-off thing, because that's the thing. There are things in this where something is said or done that, you know, hypothetically could be a setup for a payoff, but then by the end of the movie, it turns out it wasn't, and that worked fine. You know, it was just a thing. Not everything needs to be, you know, there was one thing in particular that I kept expecting them to say out loud. I don't know, maybe it is just meant to be just implied, but I'll go into it in the thought section. But I think that does... Yeah, I don't think I want to say what genres this falls into, but I will say I was very, very happy with the genre stuff. And yeah, some of this does not feel like hard R, but there are things that make it a hard R. So just be prepared, as he sang talked. And the it's definitely, it is not trying to be Evil Dead. I have slightly mixed feelings about them putting, from the director of Evil Dead on the poster. I do think putting Drag Me to Hell there makes pretty good sense. There's a decent amount of overlap there. But yeah, as long as you don't go into it expecting something, unless you're expecting something closer to Army of Darkness, in which case this will be at least a little bit more than that. But yeah. I Googled whether or not there was a post-credit scene, and Google did not seem to understand my query in the fucking slightest. There was a bunch of other movies that showed up, but not this one, so I assumed there wasn't one. If there is one, I cannot comment on it. I walked out of the theater before the end credits had fully run. Yeah. So that brings us to where we rank this, and God, it's difficult. Okay, yeah. Yes. So ranked worst to best, all of the Sam Raimi movies that I have watched. Spider-Man 3, Drag Me to Hell, Oz, The Quick and the Dead, The Gift, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, Doctor Strange 2, Send Help, Evil Dead 3, A Simple Plan, and Darkman 1. Yes, I know, sue me, I'm not sure, in my opinion, he's ever going to be able to top Darkman 1. That movie has fucking everything. I've really tried, and I don't think I can think of even one thing that movie could realistically have had. Like, if it had been made years later, it might have had other stuff, but for when it was made and for what he was trying to do, like, my God, that movie is a comic book come to life. And it is so surreal that they made that character up. They didn't take a character, like, they didn't take a comic book character. Like, let's see, they wanted to make, like, the Shadow, and then they couldn't get the rights. And I'm sorry, usually I feel shitty when someone really, really wants to do an adaptation and they just can't be allowed to. But I'm so glad that Sam Raimi had to improvise and come up with Darkman instead, because I love both Darkman 1 and the movie The Shadow, with some reservations. Obviously, Alec Baldwin also said and done some shitty things that I'm not making any excuses for him. Yeah. I rate this 8. Gorgeously shot, impeccably acted scenes featuring actors really going for broke out of 10. And that brings us to the thoughts section. So from here on out, I am spoiling fucking everything about this movie, but not any other Sam Raimi movie. I will keep my references vague enough that you are not spoiled for any of those, because honestly, he's one of those directors. I would not want to spoil a movie for anyone of one of his. Like, it would only be, like, hypothetically, if someone said, oh, I'm definitely going to watch The Evil Dead because I liked The Haunting, and I know Sam Raimi likes The Haunting, I'd be like, listen, The Haunting is a fucking amazing movie, as long as we're talking about the 60s one and not that shitty fucking remake. If your definition of a horror movie is The Haunting from the 1960s, I'm sorry, I think The Evil Dead is going to be too intense for you, and if they were like, I don't believe you, I might be willing to give up just a little bit of detail just to compel them to, avoid it, or at the very least prepare them, because that movie is really fucking intense. But yeah, I think I'll start with a couple of general. So yeah, I think the the trailer is where I'll start. So a couple of things, in the trailer, in the Survivor uh, casting pitch video, there's a clip in the trailer where she says, "People have been underestimating me my entire life." Now, I'm almost 100% certain that was not in the movie, and it didn't need to be. I forget if did she say it at some other point, maybe, but we didn't need it because it's the kind of thing in trailer you need to say that because it's important. It's a major theme in the movie, but in the movie we see it. They have time to show, don't tell. And let's see, what was the other thing that was shit? I feel like there was at least one other. Right. She in the car in the movie she cries and like does self-affirmation. In the trailer she screams in the car, and I wouldn't rule out that maybe that was either at the start or the end of the, probably at the start. Yeah, screaming, then crying, then self-affirmation, and then she goes to the plane. But Bradley and the jet. But yeah, I thought it worked really well for the trailer. It would not have, it was not necessary in the movie itself because the screaming, like we see her walk past all, and that was also, oh my god, that was so Sam Raimi. There's so many movies today where she would have walked past like just a few people. She walks past like a dozen people and everyone's staring going like, I can't believe that went so badly. Did you see that? Just holy shit. Yeah. And I think that is it for the trailer. When I saw the trailer, I thought the part where she said, I'm a less shitty boss than you, except maybe for this part, and then close up and he's crying. I thought she was like dealing with the wound, maybe, like maybe. Honestly, yeah, I kind of, based on the trailer, I thought, because the trailer also shows his leg is fucked up. I thought it would be that she like tied him up so he couldn't move and then sewed shut his wound and like stopped bleeding with the heated knife or something. But I had no fucking clue that she claimed she was fucking castrating him. And that again, like, Sam Raimi, because it's a Sam Raimi movie, until she lifted the rat into frame, I thought she fucking did it. I thought I'm watching Rachel McAdams' character cut the dick and balls off Bradley. And it's like, yeah, I genuinely would not have put past, and that's the kind of fucking, let's say, I think at least one person called like Gonzo, kind of, that's the kind of shit you'd see back in like Evil Dead, and that's the thing. Back then, I'm not sure you'd be able to get away. Well, let's see. No, there were some movies that had shit like that, but maybe didn't have as much reach as a like of underground gorehound, you know. But yeah, today you can have stuff like that in a movie. So I genuinely thought that was, and yeah, I was sitting there thinking, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess hypothetically, she'd have to stop the bleeding, but she's got a fire right there. She's got metal. Maybe she's gonna fucking, yeah, get the knife intensely hot with that, and then use that to like uh, cauterize the wound or something. But like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm so glad that the last chunk of the movie was not even implied by the trailer. My jaw hit the fucking floor when we saw they could have been there that entire time. Like she found that like weeks ago, I guess. She found it fairly early and decided not to share. Yeah, I think at this point I'm gonna go chronologically, more or less. So yeah. One of the first things we see is her shoes. And later we see her pretending to tie her laces when she's letting the fiance die. And or actively killing, really, to make sure they both die. And then at the end, we see the shoes were taken off, which we already saw her take her shoes off, and he really doesn't like it because they smell or something. What a fucking asshole. But we notice what happened to the little laces. Oh shit! And then we barely have time to fully complete the thought, and then she's fucking strangling him with that, and it's so beautifully done. Like, I did not, let's see, there were maybe a dozen and a half people in the theater. I did not get the sense that anyone was confused as to what she's using to strangle him with. We got enough of the, yeah. And I did not at all expect there to be a payoff to that. I thought it was just, oh yeah, she's got, well, let's see, she calls it like survival shoes. They're good for, because she's always prepared for survival, And let's see, so yeah, she goes to work, and we have the thing about, I don't want to call him Dono like Bradley did. I think I'll just call him Don. I don't think it's random that I guess his name is Donald. His hair color is, fairly light. He's incompetent. He takes credit for other people's work. He doesn't really respect others. He's a misogynist. He's about to get a high-level position that he is incapable of. Yeah. I appreciate them putting Donald Trump in the movie. And yeah, the thing about, so I guess you're still stuck on that thing. And she's like, no, I finished that I finished that last week. I'm working on something else now. Here you go. And, let's go in and get, as well, they said I had to be there. There might be questions. And I just handed you this, so I know you don't know this, and yeah. And he takes off the fucking, God, what a fucking asshole. It's like the woman saying, they just use your mind and they never give you credit. I should watch that movie again. I should listen to more Dolly Parton too. But the 9 to 5, I'm talking about 9 to 5. I have watched that twice. I could definitely watch it again. It really fucking nailed so much. Yeah. Right. And almost immediately we see Linda. And I appreciate they call her Linda Little. If anybody ever accused Sam Raimi of being subtle outside of like a simple plan and such, they probably don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But yeah, honestly, with that name, she could be a superhero. Anyway, we see as soon as she starts talking to other people, she's just not very good. It's one thing that, Donald is just an asshole, but she also talks to her coworkers, and that also doesn't really work. She's using these like aphorism, I guess, or allegory, and nobody else really understands. She's God damn it, I'm mixing up what was said in English and what it was subtitled to in Danish, but there's some, she uses some allegory to say, oh, I guess I'm not making it up. I think she said, we're not making it further up, and the other one just doesn't really understand. And then there's the, invitation to karaoke, and she wasn't supposed to be getting invited. And yeah, I think they really nail this thing of, that is one area where, so overall, definitely recommend Tyler Calvert's review of this movie. I do slightly disagree with him on, I thought it worked well for the movie that basically everyone treats Linda kind of bad, because like in my opinion, I respect him a lot. in my personal opinion, I think it is important for the movie to work for us to buy. Yeah, Linda, she says, I have nothing to go back to. Meanwhile, Sweetie is over there in the corner like, Jesus Christ. What am I, chopped liver? But yeah, she doesn't really, she can't really connect to other people, not just the management and such. And I did not at all expect there to be a payoff to, so I think it is called One Way or Another. And I'm not old enough to remember when it was like, current or new or whatever, but I do know that song. And I immediately, as soon as she said it, she didn't even have to say, let's see, Blondie and Debbie Harry, she didn't even need to say that before I knew. It played in my mind the moment she said One Way or Another. I was like, yeah. And 100% I could see Linda, that song would appeal to her because it is about determination, And then at the end, it plays diegetically and she sings along to it, and it's like, she was right. One way or another, She didn't get him to be with her, but she got him out of the way so that she could be in charge, just, yeah, Jesus Christ. But yeah, and I thought they did a really good job of, I did notice that the coworkers, not every coworker she had, but the coworkers she was talking to, yeah, they seem a little bit young to, I don't think they, I'm not 100% sure about her age. It's her, Rachel McAdams, and the character of Linda, but I get the sense that, yeah, she, I don't know if Rachel, if her age fits. My wrist is too fucking sore to check right now, but the certainly I got the sense that the character remembers when that song was current, or maybe just starting to fade into obscurity. And yeah, like today, if you're young enough, you probably don't know what the fuck that song is, And yeah, I thought it worked that, she's just not good at reading social cues. Like, yeah, they weren't really trying to talk to you though. It's very clear, like that guy, he's inviting the other girl, the one who like looked at Donald's LinkedIn, she is being asked out. I don't know if it's a date, but yeah. Linda isn't really, it's not directed at her at all, and she doesn't pick up on that. And then she asks, "Oh, do you have a song that you always sing at karaoke?" And he just walks off. He's, yeah. The hypothetically, this is not really bad for her to say and do, but she's just not. It's the context that's wrong, essentially. She's not like screaming at people, for example. Which is one of those things a lot of women can't get away with, but somehow men, especially men with power, can. But yeah, it's just that tiny bit off, and she just doesn't seem to really completely be able to nail it. Like, I do get the sense, I'm not sure this character would ever get really great at connecting with people, and the only positive attention she gets is some from Bradley on the island when he finally fucking appreciates all that she does for him. And there at the end, when she's rich and famous, like how Bradley got positive attention, even though he clearly isn't actually any good at this, Yeah, I think that brings us. The next thing was the, let's see. Yeah, so yeah, she's in the, yeah, she's eating the tuna, and Bradley walks up and she like puts the tuna sandwich into the desk drawer. That was also, I thought maybe that would like that at some point it would like, I don't know, have stained something, or she rips out maybe the drawer gets stuck, so she has to like tear at it, and eventually it goes, it comes out like really fast, and the sandwich goes flying or something. But it was the smell and the bit that she had on the and I love so Sam Raimi to have this like intense close up of his eye, and he's just like, what the fuck. Oh my god, this is the most disgusting fucking thing I've ever seen in my life, and we see the close-up of her with the little bit of it's just like, he's such a petty asshole. Maybe he's Donald Trump too. And later she like basically force feeds him fish, and he just fucking hates it. And I thought maybe they would at some point just say, that was what I was referring to in the review, does he just have some problem eating fish, maybe, or like or with fish in general, the taste and the smell? But they never really came out and said that. And at the same time, like, I can also appreciate a lot of people. I've never really understood it, but a lot of people don't seem to like if you've got a little bit of food on your face or something. It's like, okay, why is that a big deal? Like, just be polite and say, oh, you've got a little bit of here, so they can fix it and then move the fuck on. But yeah, but I do appreciate let's see, the other thing was obviously, like, being forced to eat is unpleasant. But the let's see, I think the next thing was right, she talks about oh, right. I think I missed so Sweetie. She went home, talked to Sweetie, and there's the thing about, well, Donald screwed me. Yeah, that's... You know what? I'm just going to say, release the files and leave it at that. But yeah, and when she first says Sweetie, we for a second there, we think, I mean, maybe she does have a partner. I mean, that's, and to be clear, I'm not saying there's something wrong with not having a partner, but some people really, really want a partner, and then it can be really painful if you can't have one, And yeah, turns out to be the bird. And I will say that scene definitely I don't know, maybe it's just because, let's see, I think it was Queen Pope Francis, I believe it was. Yeah. Let's see. They made a video, let's see, ranking the worst Ben Garrison cartoons, I think it was. And they mentioned Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. Maybe it's that, I watched that video earlier today. That comes warmly recommended, as in general, the videos of Queen Pope Francis. But maybe that's part of why I was thinking it, but I definitely got that vibe, the Honey, I'm Home scene from that movie vibe with this scene, talking to Sweetie the bird, which is also, it's nicely done, because like Sweetie, Tweety, okay, I can see how you arrived there. And yeah, the part where she feeds the bird and herself at the same time, and just, yeah. Let's see, I think that brings us... Yeah, I think that's that entire scene. Yeah, and it felt like, because it's one of those things, like, you could argue, it's a little awkward exposition. Well, the fact that she's talking to her bird tells us that this is the only way she gets to vent. No person listens to her. Like, this is the kind of thing that, wouldn't be terrible if you had a coworker to talk to, someone who's met the people that you're talking about, and they could be like, oh, I know that person is such an asshole. All Linda has is the bird, and I think it really worked that she's talking to the bird. I'm not saying the movie's perfect or anything, but I think that brings us to, so yeah, she meets him, and we have the thing about, she's basically saying, I will, I'll do what I can to help you, and he again, like, struggles with the allegory. Just, it just doesn't quite land when she tries to, a lot of the time when she communicates with someone else, it just doesn't quite work. some of the time it works on the island, and then there at the very end. But other than that, not really. And yeah, we notice the shoes, and that's the first time he sees them. So later he, when he sees them on the island, he's seeing them again, not for the first time. And yeah, and it doesn't help that if he thinks it's gross that she eats a tuna sandwich at her desk. Like, what's the big fucking deal? And this is also one of those things of like, yeah, if you don't like employees eating at their desk, maybe you should be giving them a longer lunch break, you fucking asshole, because the company can't afford it, but you like to wring every last dollar of stolen wages out of your employees before you kick them to the curb. I don't like corporate America, can you tell? In general, like, powerful cishet white men working at the tops of companies and such, they are so frequently so incredibly harmful to the rest of us. And I really appreciate a movie like this. Like, it really did not hold back. Like, Bradley is one of the biggest assholes I've seen in a movie recently. I'm rewatching, we're getting Daredevil Born Again season 2, so I'm rewatching the Defenders verse. I'm partway through season 1 of Jessica Jones. Still one of my favorite Marvel things ever of any medium. Kilgrave is is worse of a person. He's a fucking monster. But Bradley is fucking up there. And not to mention, a lot of things he does, he's fucking up there. But yeah, he already thinks she's gross for eating tuna, so her shoes, when obviously, I mean, it's limited how much they can do about like personal hygiene on the fucking island, and they've been there for, what did she say, a day and a half or something? Yeah, obviously there's going to be some, so yeah, again, Sam Raimi, he's one of those filmmakers where you can practically feel it and smell it when something gross is in his movies, which frequently is the case. But yeah, so, she points out, his shoes are fancy. He better not step in any water puddles. And also the thing about, like, he doesn't even fucking recognize her. God, what a fucking asshole. Because, like, and that's the thing, that's something I've heard from women, especially here on YouTube. For a lot of women, after, at some point they realize a guy flirting with them does not mean he thinks they're special. It might just mean he thinks that if he flirts enough with her, she'll sleep with him, or it's just an ego boost for him. So, yeah. And we very much see that here. Like, he doesn't even fucking remember her. Jesus Christ. Like, listen, I don't remember every person I've greeted. I remember the people I've fucking flirted with. Like, I'm torn on whether I want to watch more of Dylan O'Brien being an asshole in playing asshole characters, or if I want to see something where he doesn't play an asshole at all. Because I do also want to see him play, in both of these, he also, at least some of the time, he can be charismatic. But the overall character is a complete asshole, I don't know. I would like to see him in something where he plays something completely different. I've heard that at least some of the stuff he does, he plays it completely different, similar to the earlier mentioned, other, yeah. I think that does bring us to the, let's see. Yeah, so, she realizes that she's not getting the job, and there's that thing, I love the accuracy and the stone cold reality of, yeah, well, they were in the same frat in college, they play golf together, so yeah, he's getting the job. And she points out, to Bradley, Donald has been here for 6 months. I've been here for 7.5 years. Like, obviously she should be getting that job. I wonder if she also trained Donald for another comparison to 9 to 5. And yeah, I love that at least one person like practically steps in front, like they're basically practically tackling Linda. No, stop, do not go in there, and just like, yeah. And we have so as she walks in, he's asking this young woman, conventionally attractive, which Rachel McAdams is as well, but this woman is younger than Linda, and Rachel. But yeah, he's asking, how far are you willing to go to, to help me, or something along those lines. And even at that point, we're thinking, yeah, I know what that means. It's that old trope of like, which, to be clear, a lot of the time is not true. There's so many secretaries and such who don't sleep with their boss, but it's very clear that's what he's thinking. That's what he wants her to think. That's what Linda hears. And later when she says, she repeats those same words back at him, and that's how he perceives it. And she says, she was just kidding, But yeah, and the way that he talks to her in the office is just like, I've already made my point about why he's the real reason he's not hiring her. And yeah, and then the fiance comes in, and this thing of like, happy fiance, obviously she means happy engagement, and the fiance's like, yes, I am happy. And I thought they did a really good job. Like at that point, we're like, oh god damn it. But then later when she shows up, like I did feel kind of bad for her, because she clearly does love Bradley. She just wants him back, But yeah, we see the ring, and then later when we see it on the boat, like we meet, before we see her face, we see the ring. And and that's the thing that's making a light. Like at first I thought she was like waving around a flashlight or something. No, it's the light, it's sunlight on the ring. It's wonderfully done. And yeah, he, in front of his fiance, says, noxious odor. God, what a fucking asshole. Ugh. And let's see. Yeah, and he, he says, right. And I would say it's Dennis Haysbert. Very cool to see him again. It's been a while. He says, listen, Donald is completely out of his depth with, what was this, Sector 4 or something like that, We're going to have to bring Linda. And so he's like, okay, fine. And then he says to Linda, I don't know, but if you do this thing for me, maybe. And like everybody watching knows, he's not considering her. He just needs to get a little bit more work out of her. Again, the 9 to 5 thing, the movie, and so on. Yeah. And yeah, she's right. I love the bit where she's at home and the camera pans across her books, and she sits down to watch Survivor, and she's clearly really into it. And that is something. Listen, I have seen a lot of fucked up things in Sam Raimi movies, and I've been like, you know what, is I'm still really loving this, even if, the very first time I saw it, I was maybe like, ugh, that's really fucked up. I think I draw the line at fucking reality television, so I really appreciate that we only just see the intro, and then we have Linda saying something like, something about she's going to stop watching if this particular person gets voted off the island or something. Oh, God, I fucking hate reality television. But so we know she watches this all the time, and we see the books, and I like that one of the books is like how to talk to your animal, or how to talk to your bird, something like that. But yeah, a bunch of books on survivalism, because like, yeah, she likes the idea of getting away from all of this, and yeah. Let's see. I think that does bring us to, yeah, so yeah, she shows up to the plane, and they're all being assholes to her, and it's like, motherfucker, she's there to work for you. It's not like she strong-armed you into this. It's the other way around. God, ugh. I really admire Sam Raimi's and Dylan O'Brien's ability to deliver characters that we just fucking despise. But but yeah, and on the plane, she's like sitting there, she's doing she's hard at work making the section D or whatever it's called. And then suddenly she realizes, oh, they're watching and laughing at my Survivor audition tape, And that was another thing that went on for longer than a lot of, recent movies would have had it, But yeah, Sam Raimi, and it, I would argue, it is important for the movie that he really underlines how low her status is and how much other people treat her like shit, so that we understand why. Because, like, this is a movie where, like, after the crash, she doesn't really mourn her colleagues. She tries to keep Bradley alive and make something happen between them, but she's not, like, and we know it's not that she's incapable of grief, because she feels terrible after, killing the boat guy and letting Zuri die. So she is capable of that. And I'm not saying that she was to blame for the other deaths, like she obviously was with those two. She wanted that to happen. But yeah, it's important that we appreciate, like, this really is, that is the situation. But yeah, and so she doesn't save. She throws away all her work because she doesn't want to keep, being shit on by these fucking assholes. And it works really well. That's the thing. Like, that is the turning point for her. It's not when they crash. It's when she deletes the work. That's when she stops trying to get their approval, at least for the office work. Once they're on the island, she really embraces island life, and she obviously wants some appreciation for that, for saving his fucking life, but they barely talk about her, like, even though that was her life for 7.5 years, and he thinks they're going back to that. So, but that's not, yeah. So yeah, and then, oh my god, so yeah, so several, I love the thing about, Donald was like, oh, you got to see this, and Brad was just like, and then Donald's like sheepishly, okay, I guess I'll get up and come over to you with a computer. Because he actually thought, like, Jesus Christ, do you not know who Bradley is? Or I guess it's possible that Bradley changed once, he got this position. And I also really appreciate, yeah, like they mentioned, he got this job because his dad built the company. He didn't do shit. He has no idea what he's doing there. He's not even gonna... He's gonna lose having Linda at the higher position just because of the fucking tuna and the shoes and the social awkwardness. Like, seriously? And this kind of thing happens in, yeah, the corporate world all the time. Mediocre men fail upwards their entire lives and get ahead of women who work way harder and are so much more talented and competent. Like, pretty much anything that you love, if you do enough research, you'll find at least one woman who had a significant impact on it. Just a couple off the top of my head. Science fiction genre started by, oh my god, oh fuck me, I cannot, Mary Shelley, that's it. When she wrote Frankenstein, in my opinion, one of the best genres in fiction. Star Wars, saved in the edit by, I want to say her name was Marcia Lucas, George Lucas's then wife. His original cut, oh my god, you would not believe the fucking decisions. Like, you don't have to take my word for it. Look this shit up if you don't already know the details. It would have been a mess. Star Wars would not have gone past one movie if they had released into theaters the original cut. It might still have made a dent, but it would have been like cult movie status. It would not have been, now it's one of the biggest franchises, I don't remember her name or the details, but there was at least one woman who did something really significant to help us get the computer. And there were women who worked to put astronauts in space. Like, yeah. Moving on. I think that does bring, but yeah, and I really loved when, yeah, so there's the thing about, we're we're getting into a little bit of turbulence. You should all take a seat and fasten your seatbelt. And Bradley like repeats it, and then I'm not going to use the exact word he uses, but he says, you'd be pathetic if you're actually gonna, fasten your seatbelt. And then he does the laugh, which right from the trailer, like I already knew Dylan O'Brien from Not Okay, but in that he does not laugh like that. As soon as I heard the laugh in the trailer for this, I was like, oh my god, he gets it. He 100% understands, because it's just, the noise is just like fucking. Can you just do nails on a chalkboard with a dentist drill and a smoke alarm instead, please? Because that would be less grating to listen to. And right after he said that, shit starts going wrong, and then he, makes sure that, like, let's see, he gets like the vest thing on, and is like, I thought you said it was weakness to do that, and it is like, there are so many men who will, say, that's weakness to do that. And then when push comes to shove, they'll either do it or they won't, because they're too fucking stubborn, and there'll be consequences to them being so fucking stubborn. And they'll probably blame it on women or other minorities. The entire plane crash was so fucking good. Pure Raimi. Like, you've got all the little elements, the way that, let's see, I think the first thing was the door blowing open, and someone gets like pulled out, and there's like windows. First they like cracks form, and then they get sucked out one by one. And Linda's sitting there. She still, she never took her seatbelt off, because she wasn't headed up to look at the video. Several of the people who get sucked out, yeah, they stood up to watch that video. Bradley was sitting down. The others came to him for the video. And Donald, I really appreciate how much of a fucking asshole they made him, because like Linda was trying to rescue him, and then he was like, no, you get out of the seat so I can sit down. You want her to die because you wanted to be an asshole and humiliate her in front of her new boss. Like, I mean, in real life, I don't approve of this kind of thing, but I think this is called instant karma, which I appreciate is a misunderstanding of the concept of karma. I'm not trying to white people that shit. So but yeah, and the other guy who's like trying to get, and Don fucking kicks him in the mouth so the teeth go flying out, and just, oh my god, so fucked up. And yeah, ultimately, Donald, yeah, let's see, I think it's because the other guy, it's because he's not letting go or something, and he goes, out, and then he's like right out the window, and he's like, Linda, do something. Asked and answered, Your Honor. She like lowers the little thing so that she can't see or hear him. Pure fucking Sam Raimi. I'm so glad he's back. Wonderful. And the yeah, oh my god, the shot of, where it's like, it's almost all black, but we see her face very clearly, and she's like screaming as it's crashing. That worked incredibly well in the trailer and the movie. And yeah, she's underwater, and now the fucking seatbelt is risking drowning her. That was also something, when he comes to, he's not like, are you okay? He's just like, why aren't you doing more to get us rescued? God, he's such a fucking asshole. But yeah, and she ends up on, onshore, that's it. And the, let's see, yeah, and she finds him, and sees the fucked up leg, and makes sure that he gets shade so that it, because like it's really important to, his physical condition could really worsen if you're not careful. And he comes to, and he's just complaining. And let's see, and yeah, she gathers water. And I think a lot of, possibly all that she does, or at least a good chunk of what she does, that is stuff I've heard people who know this kind of shit, yeah, that is what you should do in this kind of situation, which I really appreciated. And yeah, they did a good job setting it up. I'm noticing that now I'm starting to wonder if Rachel McAdams has starred in more than 2 movies where she gets on a plane and there's at least one establishing shot of her, her home or old home, where like the camera will pan across stuff that conveys something about her character. Anyway, I think that does bring us to the let's see. Where were we? Shit. No, yeah, I think yeah. So she does various things to prepare, and let's see. Yeah, I thought they did a really great job. Like the times where she smiles is when she's psyching herself up and saying it's gonna work out. Positive attitude and all the she's got the these posters or something at her desk that also say positive attitude. You gotta stuff like that, and yeah, that makes her smile, the psyching herself up, hoping for the best, optimism. And when she's on the island and she's just able to do these things that, and it's like, it's completely clear she is incredibly talented. There's just so few people who appreciate it. And when she's just by herself and just doing the things that she's good at, it works out well, and then he comes to and starts fucking complaining. And yeah, I appreciated. So I'm not trying to speak for women here, but a number of the things that we see in this movie are things that I have heard female feminists here on YouTube say. So yeah, some of it I've already said. Let's see. I feel like there was at least one thing I wanted to mention that I hadn't already. Let's see. Oh wait, maybe that is everything. I guess. Yeah. And I think that brings us to the yeah. So yeah, he comes to, and she gets him water, and we have the thing with the fish. And I did think it worked really well. Like she's essentially treating him like a child or an animal. Later she refers to him as sweetie, and she's drunk at the time, but yeah, she is kind of treating him like, she's feeding him like she fed her bird, and not really taking. It's very clear he's uncomfortable, and I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that I would necessarily have a perfect solution for that situation, but she is struggling at least a little bit to, like, I don't know, maybe it's a kind of thing where just have him take a small bite and maybe wait a minute or two and then he can have a little bit more, but it's going way too fast. It's very clear he's uncomfortable, and we know Sam Raimi loves to torture his, they're both the Bruce Campbell of the movie, both in the energy they put in and in being tortured on camera for the film. And I think the next thing was when let's see. Right. I did want to briefly note. So I have, come across multiple people who say, the movie is essentially this sort of mix of, I mean, Survivors, the show is brought up by the movie itself. But other than that, yeah, there's some Lord of the Flies. Appreciate that. God, I have not watched that movie in 20 fucking years. But yeah. And but other than that, this has been called a mix of Castaway and Misery. And I feel great shame in admitting, but I have not yet watched those two movies. I would very much like to. I've heard Misery is one of the best Stephen King adaptations, and God knows those can be hit or miss. And yeah, Castaway, you know, I know through pop cultural osmosis, I know a lot about them. I totally understand why those are the comparisons being drawn here. I think that brings us to the part with the yeah. So there's the thing with the yeah, you know, he says stop being Susie Homemaker, and so she takes the shoes, and he's like, well, they smelled anyway. He's such a fucking man child. He just has the last word, has to have the last word, and then she walks off, and he's like, she didn't leave me any water. Have you ever heard the expression that you catch more sugar with honey flies than vinegar? No, that's not it. Would it kill you to be a decent fucking human being for 2 seconds of your life? Like, have you tried? And yeah, she walks off, and I really appreciate it. I don't think it would have worked as well if it was an Evil Dead style montage. But the way, you know, the camera pans across and pans across, you know, and he's sitting there saying, I don't fucking need her. I'm fine. I'm just fine. And then, you know, after a while, you know, there's like drool, and he's like, because there's all this fucking, you know, sunlight, and there's no water. And then she walks back, and we get like frog's eye view. She's there. Fucking wonderful. And I can't be the only person who read that as a very overt reference to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Like, she might as well say, there's two kinds of people in this world, Bradley. Those who have the water, and those with the broken leg. And the yeah, you know, it's a power move. She's showing, hey, you need me, I don't need you. And yeah, and that's also I forget if it's then, but there's at least one point in the movie on the island where he says, you know, if I hadn't washed up on shore, you'd be completely helpless. It's like, oh my fucking god, I'm not sure I've seen a better like demonstration of, and it's obviously, you know, like I mentioned, you know, the tone is, you know, it's rubber band reality. I can't say for sure someone would say that in those exact circumstances, but we do have tech billionaires saying these ridiculous things. Like, I don't remember the name, but there was one who recently said that he wouldn't even know how to raise his own child if not for ChatGPT. And it's like, I don't think you should be raising a child if you're using ChatGPT for, I don't even remember, but he specifically, he gave an example of something that he like used ChatGPT to answer. And it's like, talk to a person. Like, listen, I'm not expecting people to just know all this. Like, listen, there used to be a saying, it takes a child to raid a village. It takes a village to raise a child. Part of what that means is you share advice. You know, no parent, no one person in general can learn everything about even one thing. You learn from others. Don't ask ChatGPT. It might take something from Reddit that's clearly sarcastic and it just reposts it as if it's real, you know, so it's sincere, I mean. But the yeah, that's what, so yeah, we have the thing about, you know, we need more food. I saw wild boar tracks. And he says, isn't a wild boar a dangerous pig? Okay, so I think this, Bradley, has anybody ever explained to you the meaning of the phrase better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt, because I think you just proved that you don't yet understand it. Holy shit. And yeah, the moment I saw the trailer, I was like, I cannot fucking wait to see Rachel McAdams hunt a fucking wild boar. And it did not let me down. You know, she accidentally steps on a twig, which he also does later, but he fucks up worse. And then, you know, and it turns around and it's like, you know, and I 100% understand why they could not have an actual wild boar for this shit, you know. And yeah, she leaps down like a fucking Yamcha or something, like Jesus Christ, or one of the assassins from Assassin's Creed. And I think maybe the shot of her jump, shit, I don't remember if that was in the trailer, but as soon as I saw it, you know, it was a tiny moment where I thought, is that really going to be it? But nope, it wasn't. Thankfully, you know, like, yeah, she manages to stab it, but let's see, the first time it's that, yeah, it's like, it breaks the branch that she's using as a spear, I think it is. And then, you know, she has to like take cover, and she does manage to stab it multiple times, you know, just, that was so fucking cool. It doesn't one of the, I forget if it's in the eye, but it's at least close to the eye, and like, just, oh, so fucked. And she gets sprayed with blood all over her fucking face because it's a Sam Raimi movie that's a hard R, you know. And okay, not all of them will have that, but some of them certainly do, and it's glorious and purposeful. And yeah, dumps the decapitated head, and Brian's like, "What the fuck?" And Linda's like, "Have you ever tried hunting? I think I like it." I believe you, and I'm scared. And the yeah, and then we have the, yeah, so she cooks for him, and yeah, I mean, there is a saying, the way to a man's heart is right next to the rib cage. No, wait, is through the stomach. And the yeah, you know, I like pork. I feel a little bit bad for the animal, but I do like it. And yeah, you know, there's the thing about, you know, I brought home the bacon, and finally he appreciates one of her, because like, she fucking did, you know, literally, it's pig. And then he laughs and snorts, and then she's like, who's the pig now? And the yeah, and I mean, technically her, you know, she's not being less awkward than earlier, really, but he's like, I don't know if they're maybe doing, I guess it's not Stockholm Syndrome, which has been disproven. Lindsay Ellis and I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. Skepchick. Rebecca Watson, I think is her name. Sorry, I truly mean no disrespect. My memory just fucking sucks sometimes. But yeah, you know, now that it's just the two of them and he relies on her to survive, you know, what is he gonna eat if not for her? A bug. Hakuna Matata, I guess. And the yeah, I think that's when I thought it worked well, this thing of the leg, you know, right after the crash. It's fucked up. He can barely stand. You know, at first he genuinely can barely move at all. And later he's able to limp and follow her a little bit. And by the end, it's so healed that he can run, which tells us, you know, they've been there for so long, and he's also determined, you know, kind of, yeah. I think the next thing might be when yeah, so he's healed some more, and they go, yeah, she says, you know, we should go for a walk. And then we see the cliffside, and I'm thinking, so lion cub being presented to the rest of the animal kingdom, I guess, I don't know. And the but that was, oh my god, the yeah, I gotta briefly geek out about the fucking photography. The part where, she's on the island and it just spins 360, like, holy shit. I mean, it's not literally bullet time, but it was somewhat reminiscent of it, which, that was also Bill Pope. And the part where the camera captures a good chunk of the island, and yeah, the Pride Rock and such, just incredibly. I don't know. Did they really find all of that in nature? Is at least some of it CG, maybe, but certainly. I wouldn't rule out the cross rock is perhaps CG. They needed something really easy to recognize and describe in dialogue, but certainly a lot of it seems real, and it adds a lot. So glad that we're getting location shooting for at least a chunk of this, instead of that's the thing. Like, if this movie had been made 15 years ago, I guess, maybe more than that, but 20 some years ago, it would have been CG and blue screen, and it just would not have been the same at all. Yeah, I think that brings us to, yeah, and the part where, she says, so if you want to know if something's poisonous, she shows it on her arm, and, like, I will say, as soon as she said that, I was like, so he's going to poison her with that later, But I was surprised that it was so early and that she survived it. And when she said, don't go over there, see that? You must never go there, Simba. R.I.P. James Earl Jones. But yeah, I thought, oh, so the movie's going to end with the two of them fighting in that horrible area. But no, in fact, it's because of the, there's a place you could live up there, Right, that actually, yeah, so I accidentally skipped over that. There's the part where the boat, and she's like, not yet, And at that time, I had no idea. I thought they were looking for the two of them, the boat. I mean, I had no idea until the end of the movie where it's revealed. No, they were just bringing supplies to that place, and so she goes there, and that's where she got the knife, and she hid the other knives just in case. Yeah, really, really nicely done. And when she said, yeah, this knife, just washed up on shore, you'd be amazed. I was thinking, it's a fucking Sam Raimi movie. Like, anything can happen, It's not unlike South Park. You never fucking know what's going to happen next. But then at the end, when she said, did you really think it just washed up? I was sitting there thinking, no, of course I didn't. Don't fucking roast me to my face, movie. Jesus. But let's see. Yeah, and we have the part where, we see the place where it's really easy to fall off, and yeah. Let's see. I think that brings us to the... Yeah, what was the next thing? I guess that's when there's the... Yeah, there's the yeah, I'm struggling a little to keep track of the order of things. I think this was around the part where he gets really just, oh my God. When feminist women criticize men, I don't feel ashamed of being a man. I just listen and try to do better than, the men they describe. But when men act the way Bradley does in this movie, that's when I come the closest. I'm not actually ashamed of being a man, but I wouldn't mind if nobody ever thought that I was in the slightest bit similar to people like Bradley. But yeah, so he starts whining because he's in charge. Do you feel in charge? And so he's like, I can build my own camp. And I love how awfully it goes, and that again felt a lot like a Bruce Campbell thing of like, I can do this, and he tries, and it just fails miserably, and the rain, I love the rain stopping, he's like, ooh, I know this, I watched it, I paid attention, okay, now we can gather rainwater, and it stops like it's fucking Truman Show. Jesus Christ, that was amazing. That might have been the biggest laugh in the entire movie in the theater. Yeah, and let's see, yeah, and he ends up having to go over there and apologize repeatedly, and and I think that's when she says, how far are you willing to go to work with me or something like that, and he starts to take his clothes off, and at the time we think, oh, she says, I was just fucking kidding, but later we realize, oh, she is actually interested in him also. So it's not, I don't think she was ever going to go through with it just then, but her saying that was not just throwing his words back in his face. And that was really great, the way that every so often she would she would say something to him that he said to her or someone else. That was the repetition I mentioned in the review and dialogue. And I think that brings us to, and I love, as he's standing there talking, she's sitting there, and it does, like, we're thinking, like, holy shit, like, even for Sam Raimi Rubber Band Reality kind of thing, this is ridiculous. How did she make this food? Like, it looks like a fucking restaurant. And then by the end of the movie, you realize, oh, right, she went to the fucking place. She went to that little, stock billionaire place, and got a bunch of stuff from there, and just made it seem like she actually caught and grew all this stuff herself, And she's sitting there, she's vigorously eating, and he's like, if I don't apologize fast enough, I'm not going to get anything to eat. It's so wonderful. And she's just, oh, there's nothing left to drink. Almost out of stuff to eat. Yes, you were saying? Just fucking love it. Oh my God. I really appreciate both Dylan and Rachel being so willing to look terrible in this movie. Like, oh God. And right, it was also really funny when she's like bathing in the spring, and it's a fucking shampoo commercial or something. That also got quite a laugh from the crowd at the audience at the movie theater, whatever. And I think that brings us to the so yeah, ultimately she accepts his apology, and also him eating the bug. Oh my God, I really hope whatever they, okay, so obviously they didn't ask the actor, they wouldn't do that, and he would never say yes. They had something that, I mean, they like CG'd the bug moving, and I think he might have put something in his mouth. I just hope it was tasty. It was definitely not something that you actually couldn't eat, but just you can chew into it, sprays. Oh God, and he spits it out, and his tongue gets all black. Ugh. And then she's like, "Oh, you got a little yeah." Let's see. I bet as he's chomping down on that bug, he's probably wishing that he could just get force-fed some more fish. And I think that's what, so they have the dinner, and they get drunk on toilet wine, which I guess, in retrospect, might also have been real wine from the stockbroker's place. But, and then also, very nicely done, like the stockbroker maybe owns that island, like someone Donald Trump used to be close friends with. That helps explain why there aren't really any other people. He doesn't need to live there right now, and he's rich, so he's not going to let homeless people live there. And so nobody else really goes down. The Azuri and the boat person show up at one point to, but that's because they thought that they might be there, Right, the part where Bradley is like, you should dive into the water where the plane crashed and find the GPS. And she's just like, what? Bradley, if you don't have something to say that makes any goddamn sense at all, maybe you should just shut the fuck up. Because that's some bullshit right there. You want her to dive down and try to... Neither of you know what the fuck it even looks like. Why would it still be working now that it's been underwater in salt water? Do you know that what that does to fucking electronics? Like, Jesus Christ. And if you're talking about the fucking black box, it being down there, from what I understand, is not really a problem. Like, they can track that shit. You know, it has to go, like, it's made to withstand fairly intense circumstance. You know, you don't need to find it and bring it to you unless you move very far away from where the plane crashed, you know. And I think that brings us to the part, yeah, so that's when yeah, so he, right, and they, you know, they talk, and she admits, you know, and I thought they did a good job with this, because it's one of those things, like, we understand why he trusts her less, but at the same time, it's also, like, it doesn't make her a monster. I would argue she crosses into that territory when she kills the boat person and Zuri, because at the end of the day, them leaving with Bradley doesn't have to affect her. You know, like, she could just say, no, I'm staying. You know, Bradley, you owe me that. Zuri, talk some sense into him. I saved his life. You would not be able to be with him if not for me. Just let me fucking stay. That would have been an option, but she really wanted him. So, you know, but yeah, she, you know, her husband ended up dead because she did give him the keys. And I think, because it's one of those things, I don't know, personally, sometimes I struggle to get a handle on Sam Raimi's politics. Sometimes he is progressive, other times a little bit more leaning conservative. I wasn't entirely sure if we were supposed to think that she was just a monster for having done that. I certainly get, you know, 100%, Bradley trusts her less. He feels less safe around her because of it. I thought they did a good job with it because, like, at the end of the day, yeah, the husband still chose to drive, you know, like, I appreciate that alcohol affects your inhibitions. I've never been drunk. I don't think I've ever drank any alcohol at all. It's just not my kind of thing. But I try not to judge people who do, as long as they don't let it get out of hand. But the yeah, you know, I try to be live and let live when it comes to stuff that doesn't harm, you know. But, and we also have the thing that, you know, she says, and I appreciate she didn't go into detail, because that I will say that did surprise me a little, because I feel like Sam Raimi of, like, maybe 30 years ago would have gone into uncomfortable detail there, and I appreciate that that he did not, because, like, it's enough to say we can yeah, like, what she says is enough. She says he did things he shouldn't have done, and that led her to giving him the keys knowing that he was too drunk to drive, you know. And yeah, like, she knew that night that there was some chance he would end up dead. And I do think the fact that, you know, it's one thing that she was okay with him dying, which evidently she was. The fact that someone else could have gotten killed as well, you know, that is approaching the line. But I don't think she crosses it into being, like, into doing evil, actively doing evil, before she kills the boat guy and Zuri dies as a direct result. Like, she knew that would happen, you know. And let's see. Yeah, and we get some backstory about, you know, we find out that the reason Bradley, you know, no one really loved him. You know, his mother was abusive, and I appreciate, you know, that was also, I thought maybe they would just leave it at abusive, but he specifies emotionally and physically. And yeah, no one taught him how to love. And I'm still of the belief that doesn't mean that what you're doing is okay. Like, you could try, there's a lot of things where, like, I've spoken about, my mother was abusive, both, she until she died, and my father, who's still alive, continues to love me, and have done a lot for me. But there were a lot of years where I didn't really feel like I had any friends. I still tried treating other people well. I'm very much of the opinion that you can choose to do your best. You don't have to become an asshole just because a lot of the people around you are assholes. And I think, but I think they did a good job. It helps explain why he is like he is. And it is also true, like, you look at a bunch of these rich, powerful assholes, yeah, like, they did not get love, or not enough, or not from the people they most needed to get it from when they were children, and now, zero-sum game, they're trying to make everybody as miserable as they are. I think that brings us to the part. Yeah, so, he says, oh, he'll cook for her, and, I tried paying close attention. I don't think we saw him eat anything. He waited for her to, and yeah, she collapses, and we get, the camera just shows the food, and again, like, I didn't get the sense that even one person in the theater didn't understand what was happening, even though we don't see him poison the food. We realize it from seeing it, and then afterwards he says, yes, I poisoned the food, and not only is he trying, it's one thing that he's trying to escape, and he's gonna just abandon her there. I mean, that's the sense I get. I'm not sure he would send anyone back for her. Right. I will just very briefly say, so I appreciate the, making him so incompetent and useless. I didn't love that one of the things was that he misspelled the word help. Like, we're obviously, that's a joke. We're supposed to laugh at the fact that he misspells a 4-letter word, and it's one of those words where, like, if you just sound it out, you might be able to tell what order the letters go in. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I don't really think, like, having dyslexia does not make you, I mean, I don't have dyslexia, but I have ADHD. A lot of people used to think that it was impossible to teach me anything because a lot of them just weren't willing to try teaching me in a even slightly unconventional way. And yeah, I'm just really not fond of jokes like that. And I thought, I wish they had just cut that one, because I thought everything else worked. I thought the misplaced overconfidence, for example, him saying, I can make a camp all on my own. And it's like, from watching her, do you not understand? Like, she actually read up on this stuff. She's, she knows all this shit, And I think that was the, yeah. And so, she's lying there, she's like vomiting. And not only is he about to abandon her, he gets on the he said it earlier, why don't we make a raft? And I think she did say, I don't think a raft makes sense. And he, of course, doesn't listen because he thinks he's better than her. There's some class there and gender dynamics at play. And not only is he about to do that, but we even see he's taking her cup. Like, what an asshole. She made that. You piece of shit. You don't even need it. What is fucking wrong with you? Why do you need a cup? Like, I get bringing water. Why do you need a cup? Just pour it from the tall motherfucking thing that you... Which is also, he's also stealing the water that she gathered, but just, like, he's such a petty asshole. It has her name on it, it's... And again, we noticed the cup. We didn't necessarily think, we just, saw, oh, and she carved her name into it with a... I think he maybe has a line about, I guess, that, Linda on your cup, huh? And I think that brings us... Yeah, I appreciated the thing about, he didn't actually look at her work. He just pretended to, but he didn't take it seriously. so he doesn't even know what department she works in, and was it strategy and planning? And she says that the last time she says that is right before she kills him, because that's what she did. She planned. She was strategic. She didn't put bullets in the gun because she had no intention of shooting him. And that is one of the first things. I haven't personally taken gun training, but I've heard one of the first things they tell you is never put a loaded gun at something you don't want to shoot. And thus, she wanted to point the gun, she wanted to threaten him, but she didn't want to shoot him, so she didn't put bullets in the gun. And it's so clever because she didn't actually fire it. If at some point she had fired it, it would have been like, well, what if he had grabbed the gun before she had fired it once? But she never fired it. We just assumed, and oh god, it's so fucking good. But yeah, he thinks he should be the boss of, he's not the boss of her now. He thinks he should be, and he doesn't even pay attention to the work she does. Like, such a fucking asshole. God damn it. And I think, yeah, and at first it's like, I don't know about those waves. Oh, well, maybe he'll make it. And he turns around and he goes like, fuck you, Linda, and flips both birds. Not the sweetie one. And then the wave. And this is where I was really thrilled. One of the times I was really thrilled to be watching at the theater. That massive one. The sort of POV shot is like, God, that was so fucking cool. And again, like the sound design there, because you really need to sell it. It's yeah. He washes up and he goes under and it crumbles like it's made of like pixie sticks or something. And he's under the water and Zuri's like, it's come with me, and then it's actually Linda, and then she vomits on his face multiple times, and then like starts doing mouth to mouth, which must taste fucking horrible because she just threw up. I've missed Sam Raimi so much, and I'm so fucking glad that this. Oh my god. Yeah. So the I think that brings us to the yeah. And so he apologizes, and she says it's okay. We gotta get you back to full strength though. So eat this. And he's like, maybe you should have some. No, you need it more than I do. Which like yeah. Now who's eating while the other one isn't? Motherfucker. And suddenly he can't move, and she explains it's temporary. I found it days ago. I recognized it because she studied this shit. There's like, as again, the kind of thing, if you study like survivalist shit, yeah, you're gonna find out, okay, do not eat this. It will fuck you up, Or here is the way in which it would fuck you up if you did. And she even knows the exact name. She doesn't just say, I found a squid. I cannot repeat it. I do not remember, but she gave like, it was like a Latin, the species name, and then she says, it's your gender or something along those lines, which, yeah, like she says you can't help biology, something like that, which, I don't know, it feels a little bit biological essentialist for me, but I appreciate maybe that's how Linda is. Like, I hope the movie isn't trying to say that bullshit, which has been disproven, is at all credible. But, then she starts talking about, well, there was this dog. And immediately, like, oh my god, I could sense everyone in the audience tensing up. We were as one. We could, yeah. For several minutes there, we were unable to relax, because as soon as she said, when I was a girl, I had a dog. And it caused trouble, and she's got the knife, and he's incapacitated, and she just said that he's not going to feel anything, and he's going to be happy about that. Like, immediately, like, we know where this is going, and just, like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, and the blood sprays on both their faces, and she's like, oh, there sure is blood, and yeah, like, until she held up the rat, I legit thought, I guess she fucking did it. Like, and it's not even, I'm not saying it's the first movie to have. There are movies out there that have actual like castration it's scenes. God, I hope there's not a fucking movie that has. I don't know. I wouldn't rule out one of those. I think I have actually heard of one, but I forget if it turned out to be fake or real or what, but there was at least one of those, what the Brits call them, video nasties or something like that. I feel like there was at least one of those that supposedly had an actual castration in it. But I'm going to move on. I've said everything I had to say about that. But yeah, and then she says, next time it won't be a rat. I watched this with my father, who, he was already a fan of A Simple Plan, and I had also already shown him the Evil Dead movies. He's also quite fond of those. This was the first time I showed him the Spider-Man movies and The Gift. Yeah. After we walked out of the movie, after watching the movie, as we were walking home, he said that was a mental castration that she carried out there. And I think that does bring us to the, let's see. Yeah, the next thing I believe is when she sees the boat and the diamond glinting in the sun, and yeah, she's like, I can't believe you're here. And I thought they did a really great job there. I genuinely felt really bad for Zuri because immediately, we know where this is going. We don't see it right away, but we know what must have happened. But yeah, she's like, I can take you to Bradley. He is anybody but the two of you still looking for? Yeah. And she's like, there's a shortcut up here. I just need to tie my shoelaces. Please don't look down and check, because obviously in real life they are tied. And yeah, Zuri almost falls off, and then boat guys, and I appreciated that, because this is a big moment. This is a huge turning point for the movie. It's not the only one. I've mentioned some of the other ones, but yeah, it's one of the biggest. Both of the poisonings, for example, are also. But yeah, Sam Raimi does not rush through it. He lets us sit with it, and we don't see immediately what exactly she did. But afterwards, she's very quiet, and she washes her hands. So even fucking Bradley can tell something's wrong. He's terrible at reading people, clearly. But the right, I also like the part where she's like, aren't you a gloomy Gus? Why don't you smile a little? And he smirks, and then she's like, see, there you go. That was a fun reversal, because that's, it's so fucked up when men say that to women. Just let her not smile. Or if you really badly want her to smile, if you think that if you carefully read the situation and you get the sense that it would be okay to, maybe say or do something that might make her smile, and then if it doesn't work, just accept that and move on. But don't just tell her to smile. She's not your fucking pet, asshole. No matter who she is to you. If someone you love is not smiling, don't say, why don't you just smile? Ask them if they're okay, if there's anything that you could do to make them feel better, something like that, It's not rocket surgery. What was that thing that Dead Domain said? Rocket biology. And then a bunch of chuds apparently thought that Jordan was being serious. Oh my God. So many conservatives have such little understanding of what humor is that they literally can't recognize it when someone else, if you don't think it's that funny, sure, but to take rocket biology seriously as a phrase when it's obviously it's a variation on rocket surgery, which is, instead of saying, let's see, what was the original, brain surgery or rocket science, it's yeah. I think that brings us to the part where, yeah, and then that night she wakes up And I thought they did a really great job. It felt very reminiscent of a Deadite, the way that she moved. And I don't know if it was a stunt person or if that really was the actress playing Zuri the rest of the time, but whoever, fantastic job. Like, the movement was so unsettling and disturbing and off-putting. Like, it did not look like a human should be able to move quite like that. I immediately were thinking, like, fucking zombie? What the fuck? And at first she doesn't look like a Deadite, but then, the jump scare, very Deadite. Like, that was one spot I would not have hated if they had tried to keep that practical. There was at least some CG. Maybe it was just the eye popping out that was CG, but yeah, certainly the face. Like, I do think, when I think about my favorite Sam Raimi movie special effects, it's pretty much almost exclusively practical ones. Evil Dead, Darkman, that kind of thing, including fucked up faces and such. Like, I will never forget what Darkman looks like without the mask. Like, goddamn. And we don't even get, like, we don't spend forever looking at that. I really appreciate that we never get used to it. That was one of the problems with the sequels. Same thing with the Freddy Krueger sequels. Yeah. I think that might bring us to the but yeah, turns out to be a nightmare. But yeah, she's feeling she's traumatized by what she did, understandably. And that's the part. Let's see. What's the next thing? The next thing was the Bradley, finds a hand sticking out in the ring. Again, like, I really appreciate that the ring got multiple payoffs after the first setup. It's how we realize that Zuri on the boat. It's how Bradley recognizes, and then, he's like, what did you do? Did you kill her? Who are you talking about? And he holds up he's got the ring on one of his fingers. And not long after, she puts it in her mouth and she eats it, like, or swallows it. That's so fucked up. Like, just, yeah. And let's see. Yeah, and we get the flashback, and yeah, I thought that it was very smart to hold off on that. It was very late in the movie. Like, even I suppose there's not a huge amount of screen time between running time between Zuri slipping and Linda considering what she's about to do, and then us seeing it. But I still thought it was right to hold off on. And yeah, it was a decision. It was not an accident. She very deliberately did it. And let's see. Yeah, come to think of it, maybe the flashback wasn't until they were in the stockbroker's place. But yeah, and the entire fight, I love the part where, yeah, so he's holding up the ring and she reaches for the knife and he's got it. Wonderfully done. And then she runs off and now he can follow her because his leg is healed enough. And, I'm not one of those people who say that, men are not inherently superior to women. There are certain aspects where a lot of men are better than a lot of women, but a lot of the time it's stuff that is not that important today. Like, superior upper body strength, great, because we still live in nature and need to kill animals to eat. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's not something that is actually crucial for us to thrive anymore. It's more important to have empathy, communication, understanding of complex issues. And in those regards, a lot of the time, a lot of women are significantly better than a lot of men at those things. And there are so many men who take pride in being bad at those things because, those are women's things. I would rather we all perish than I be thought of as similar to a woman, even temporarily. Like, oh my fucking God. And the, right, if you haven't already, Emma Thorne did yet another excellent video. Let's see, I think it was something like Incel gives macho advice or something along those lines, And yeah, it was just fucking amazing. Let's see, I think it was I don't know. I don't know if I feel comfortable naming the because there's a, let's just say she was talking about a YouTuber. Part of their name is Math. You might already know who I'm referring to, and if not, yeah, you can watch Emma's video as usual. She's so fucking good at just tearing into, yeah, like you give her a logic problem and she will wipe the floor with it. Now, I think that might bring us to, and there's a lot of logic problems when it comes to far right people, maybe especially the men. They have no fucking clue what they're doing or saying. Anyway, yes, I think, yeah, and yeah, the entire last bit, it was just so fucking cool. I don't think I've ever been genuinely let down by the last chunk of a Sam Raimi movie. They're always so fucking good, I'm not saying it's only there that the movie gets good. That is the case with some other films, but with Sam Raimi, like, my God. So yeah, there's the part where, yeah, so she hides behind a tree, and we see the camera, and then the camera goes away from the tree, and Bradley walks up, and he's like, ah, she must be over there, and maybe he can smell the shoes. And then she walks up, and the camera goes over. She's gone. Where is she? And he looks down. Oh, there's the shoes. Didn't her shoes used to have laces? And he's like, ah, fucking awesome. And it's one of those things I love, because it's not super difficult to do it safely. In reality, it's not actually tight around his throat. They just make it look like it is, and then he has to pretend like he can't breathe, and she has to pretend like she's holding it really tightly so that he can't breathe. And it's just, yeah, it's so fucking good. And let's see, there's the, yeah, there's the part where yeah, he manages to get on top. Right, there's also some sexual tension in that part where she's on top of him. I think, is that when she rescues him from the raft? Maybe, I forget. But yeah, and we get the fucking Three Stooges thing. That was, I did not feel comfortable mentioning in the spoiler-free review, oh, there's there's at least one Three Stooges reference, because you'd be sitting there waiting for it, and I'm so glad that I hadn't read that there would be one. I wasn't seriously surprised. The moment that a finger went toward an eye, I was like, Three Stooges, he loves that shit. And right, when I say shit, I don't mean to be like super dismissive. Three Stooges, not really my kind of thing. I watched a little bit of it. I am much more into Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin. But anyway, and it also just feels like something that, it's possible he's done it in at least one other movie. I can't really think of one where he at least not goes as far as he does here. And it's the kind of thing, like, yeah, it feels like he has maybe wanted to, there's at least a little bit in at least one of the others. I guess what I'm saying is it was more emotional here. I cared more here. In the other one, or possibly multiple, I'm trying not to spoil the other movies, in those, I did not feel, it was more like, oh, that's gnarly, awesome. But I wasn't like, I was genuinely sitting there thinking, no, don't do that, because I realize she's at this point the antagonist, she's villainous, but yeah, I didn't want him to win, because I gotta say, I never really felt like he was even remotely a good person. Like, I would have been fine with an ending where they both, like, if both of them ended up killing each other, like if one of them kills the other and then the other one succumbs to wounds that the first one gave or something like that. I am really glad it did not end with him coming out on top, because it would not have been the first Sam Raimi movie where a man who really did not deserve to win, but he's now the main character, so I guess he has to wins. And I cannot put into words. That would have really soured me on at least the last chunk of the movie. I might still love the first bit. I appreciate the ending is obviously, we're not supposed to take it as like, oh, happy ending, she deserves this. Like, no, but it is, I mean, she succeeds under capitalism. I think, maybe the real capitalism was the friends we lost along the way by being shitty and just trying to get ahead. And no, it's it's not that she is like uniquely evil. It's that capitalism leads people to do awful things, and patriarchy. She was married to a guy for 10 years, and when Bradley's like, I'm sorry he died, and she's like, don't be, he was not nice. For years, every night she considered leaving him. That's fucking horrible, and there are so many women who live in a situation like that, and so many conservative men who want that, who think that women should just be sad and miserable all the time, and then turn around and say, why aren't you smiling more? I don't know. Rape, wage theft, being institutionalized for disagreeing with one's husband, like that's something that actually used to fucking happen. They used to say that women who did not obey their husbands had a mental illness and their brain had to be, lobotomized. Jesus fucking Christ. I don't think I will ever understand people who make excuses for misogyny or bigotry in general. It can be understood. It should not be excused. And we're going to move on. But yeah, and the fact that the way that the eyeball, and there's so much blood, and so fucking cool. And let's see, yeah, and he ends up running off, and there's he finds the place, and sneaks in. I kept expecting the alarm to go off, but then she says, oh, turned off the alarm easily enough because she saw them punch in the code, and yeah, we see all the fucking food, and there's bottled water and everything, and it's also just like, wait, apparently the stockbroker billionaire wasn't even expecting to go there soon. Like, I also kept expecting her to say that she had to kill him to have this place to herself or something. Nope. He just wanted it freshly stocked, Like, there's literally people starving to death, dying of thirst, and, this asshole has... I appreciate this is fictional, but still, there are people who actually stock up on stuff like this and don't, I suppose maybe... Yeah, I'm gonna move on for... But yeah, and then he hears her voice and she's watching through the camera, the whole thing. Just, yeah, and then he like smashes the camera and she's like, where'd you go? Bernadette? I mean, Bradley? And I keep forgetting if I did recommend that video, but god damn it, what's her name again? Laura Crone did a fantastic, I believe it's called An Entirely Unhinged Roast of Where'd You Go, Bernadette. Fantastic video. Fucking loved it. I might read that book, but I'm not sure I'm going to watch that movie. And I think that brings us to the... Yeah, and so, he goes through the place and, ends up finding that room, and then she comes out and she's got the gun. And I thought they did such a brilliant job because, like, he was in that room without her watching for just long enough that he could have grabbed that horn. And, like, yeah, him having his hands behind his back, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just noticing that she had a gun on him, and I'm sitting there thinking, is this really going to end with her fucking blowing his brains out? Like, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just wondering. And, again, because it's fiction, there's some catharsis there. I do not, in real life, I'm very much of the opinion that violence should only ever be the last resort. I'm not saying it's never necessary. It was necessary to use violence to stop the Nazis in World War II. Stonewall needed to happen. Shouldn't have needed to, but did, for more LGBTQ plus rights. But in, most cases, violence begets more violence. You're just kicking the can down the road. You are not solving the problem. Think of the 100-Year War. Like, they kept thinking, oh, more violence will solve this. And yeah, it took fucking generations for them to stop. And the but yeah, and he even, he gets on his knees, and yeah, we're really thinking like, I guess he maybe is giving up. And there's the thing about, sweetie, and I love you too. It's so fucking warped. It's so, oh my god, it's so fucked up. And I'm genuinely sitting there thinking like, I mean, I know he doesn't mean it, but I don't know what the fuck is gonna happen. And she means it. Like, she does think there is some chance that this ends with the two of them together, even though he knows for a fact that she killed his fiance. Just like, oh my god. And then, she looks around the room, and suddenly there's, because there's two bullheads. One of them has two horns, one of them does not. And the camera goes behind his back, very sneaky, and he's got the horn, and I guess he thinks she messed with the bull. And so he attacks, and the whole, oh my god, it's so fucking cool. And yeah, he gets the gun, and then, points it at her, and he doesn't even really hesitate to shoot. Like, he does want to kill her. And he presses the trigger, nothing. He, does the what's it called? The cocking the gun, whatever. Reload, whatever. There's no shells in there. It's wonderfully done. And just, yeah. And she grabs the golf club and, hits him so that he gets on, he ends up on the ground. And like earlier, at the start of the movie, again, I did not think that was set up. I thought it was just them saying, he doesn't really care about people. He just wants to fucking golf, But yeah. And so she gets the golf club and swings, and such a wonderful cut, because it's like, there's so many directors who would have insisted, no, we have to see the head get really fucked up or something. But, and you could still have done like a transition. You could show the head get fucked up and then have a close-up of her face, and then the camera pulls out, and then now she's golfing or something. But now it was fucking perfect. She does the, and like, until the end credits started rolling, I was not 100% sure if this was just in her head, if this was something she was picturing or something. Well, I guess once she's in the car driving away singing, then I was like, okay, no, this really is happening. But yeah, just because it wouldn't be the first time that the movie showed us something that was just in her head, but yeah. And yeah, she's at the annual golf tournament, and she's still slightly socially awkward. There's the thing that, so you're doing really well. I am doing really well, aren't I? So I'm not saying that I would acquit myself better in this circumstance, but yeah, that's kind of considered faux pas. Don't do that. Don't be like, oh yeah, I'm so awesome. Like, it's fine to acknowledge that the other person said you're awesome, but just, like, I suppose if I was in that situation, I'd be like, so you're the founder of my fan club or something. Like, it's fine to acknowledge, but don't be like, I am awesome, aren't I? Just, and the, yeah, then she, there's the thing about, well, she wrote a book about her experience on the island, and it's getting turned into a movie, which is such a fucking, oh my god. I wonder if that movie will also star Rachel McAdams. I wonder if I just finished watching it before leaving the theater watching this movie. Just, oh my god. And yeah, I loved the couple of straight, like, fourth wall breaks. I think it's when she's talking to Bradley and saying, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. She looks directly into the camera. And then there at the end, she's like, I have a message. And the reporter also looked in the camera. And I guess maybe they're sort of saying, well, maybe the camera she's looking into is the one that's filming her for the interview. But yeah, she looks directly into the camera and says, help isn't coming. And yeah, that is, like, it's such a great, because it fits for the situation. She's saying, I realized I had to take care of myself. But it's also her saying, okay, yeah, that's the thing. There's several things going on other than what I've just said. It's also that she feels like, no one was coming to help me personally. Linda, no one reached out and helped me. Even her own husband didn't help her. And she felt like no one was going to help them on the island. And then when help seemingly did arrive, she killed the helpers, so there's several things there, and it is, and I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I have been known to do that. I'm probably not going to stop. Maybe there's a little bit of commentary on individualism, this thing of like, oh, I'm going to take care of myself no matter who it hurts. Like, this situation is obviously very unusual, but yeah, this is potential. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that, yeah, people get hurt because of individualism. We should focus on community instead. Speaking of, Leisha Miller did a really solid video. I'm afraid I forget the title, but it was about, Minnesota, what to learn, how to deal with ice, something like that. And yeah, fantastic video as usual for her. So many talented leftist YouTubers. I think that brings us to the... But yeah, and she's, she gets in the car, she drives away. Sweetie's right there on the seat next to her. Sweetie on the CD. And one way or another, I think it's called, the song starts playing. She sings along, and I think she breaks the fourth wall looking directly into the camera lens one last time, and then it ends. Just fucking amazing. Oh my god. I could watch Sam Raimi movies in theaters for the next many, many years. And if they are even remotely as good as this, oh my god. I legitimately cannot put into words how great it is to... You will never catch me on a day that I am not down to watch Darkman 1. And that's another thing. What was his name again? God damn it. Because he just did a Darkman trilogy ranking, which I very much agreed with. Oh, god damn it. I'm sorry. I do not remember his name right now. Shit. It's his name and then the words Talks Movies. I quite like him. I'm just, again, sometimes really bad at remembering names and other details. Yeah, I think that does cover everything. Yeah, I also really appreciate how much he, Sam Raimi keeps challenging himself. Like, I wouldn't go so far as to say he's never made the same movie twice, because, Evil Dead 1 and 2, very, very similar movies. But he does not really like to just keep doing the exact same thing. I mean, okay, so Evil Dead, technically the trilogy and then Drag Me to Hell, there's a lot of similarities there, but there's also significant enough differences, in my opinion. Anyway, I think that does cover... Yeah, the movie really delivered everything I had hoped for. Had it felt like a horror comic comic book similar to the Evil Dead trilogy, albeit, not quite as gory or even quite as bloody, but as gross and really fucked up, as that. It had this thing of how a situation can really turn, and we've met the characters, and now we're watching a situation unfold in a really tense way, similar to A Simple Plan. And yeah, I suppose it's hard to pick one specific movie to point to as the thing of him, yeah, you'll have something regular, even banal, happen, not boring, but it's clear that this is just kind of everyday stuff for the characters and some audience members, and then this explosion, this burst of energy that just yeah. I think that might cover. I will say, maybe I missed it. I'm not ruling that out entirely. I don't think, was Bruce Campbell in this? I guess he, I don't know. I'm Yeah, it's also possible he ended up on the cutting room floor, and he doesn't need to be in every Raimi movie. It's not like Raimi has like forgotten him. He was in Doctor Strange 2 and very memorable there. So yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure where would there really have been room for him. Would he have worked as one of the just one of Bradley's buddies, maybe? I don't know. I think that does cover. Right. I'm not the first person to say it, but this movie does a really good job of doing, you have these gender dynamics at play. You have this role reversal where the woman is the one in power and the stronger, at least for a chunk of the movie, without it feeling like girl boss. And to be clear, I have nothing at all against female empowerment. I am going off that I have seen, for a while, I thought, oh, girl boss, that sounds great. And then I saw a number of female feminist YouTubers criticize the girl boss, and based on that, I really appreciate that this was not that. I'm not trying to speak for women. I do not know yet how this, I read the blurbs of critics. I didn't read anyone's full review, and I have to admit, I only read the blurbs. I did not really notice who said what, what women said versus what men said of this movie. So I am not saying that feminist women necessarily do love this movie, or yeah, it is not for me to say. But definitely, yeah, they did a really good job fitting in a bunch of critiques. And personally, it did not really strike me as a movie that says that it is bad for a woman to have power. And again, if a feminist woman comes out and says the opposite of this, please listen to them. I'm just saying, personally, to me, this read as, if you push someone far enough, eventually they will start doing something bad, and a lot of the time, in reality, when you hear about, oh, here was a woman who did something bad, if you actually look at the situation, yeah, she was like treated extremely badly leading up to it. I'm not making any excuses for, and oh shit, what was her name again? Eileen Wuornos, the serial killer. I am not making any excuses. I wish she had never killed anyone. But if you look at the kind of shit that she went through, like, you can understand how it ended up like that, Yeah, this felt more like that than a misogynistic tale of like, oh, you can't be too careful around women kind of thing. Like, she was clearly terribly treated. And note that, like, she still kept trying. Whereas, like, okay, so Bradley didn't really get love from his parents, and so he's just an asshole to, I mean, essentially everyone, but especially those who have less power, significantly less power than him. Like, Linda goes a long time before she starts really being awful to, yeah. Yeah, I think that does cover it. Holy shit. I fucking love Sam Raimi's movies. Yeah. I don't know. I hope that someone watches this video and feels inspired to watch the movie, or maybe, you know, maybe I helped them appreciate something about it that they didn't before or something. Yeah, I guess that does cover everything. Yeah, right. Did want to note, I really appreciate, I will say, there was a while where I thought that Sam Raimi only made movies that had something supernatural or like comic book. And I love both of those. When it comes to supernatural, I need it done really, really well. I can watch schlocky comic book or sci-fi or horror. When it comes to fantasy, you really need to, if you're not doing an amazing job, I'm not watching it, plain and simple. But yeah, I'm really glad that he also makes stuff like this and A Simple Plan that are very close to being set in the real world. I honestly don't remember about The Quick and the Dead, but the other ones I've mentioned, not 100%, or further away from the real world than these two. And yeah, like I'm amazed at how well he is able to terrify us even without something supernatural. Like the closest we get is the nightmare, and like I think I speak for everyone in that theater when I say we all knew that this has to be a nightmare. There's no way that this is really happening as Linda is perceiving it. But yeah, I think that does bring us to the, let's see. Yeah, it was a little funny that, so Bradley goes from, he hates the smell of tuna from her, which is also one of those things. Okay, I get, like, let's see, there's that thing about, the worst person in the office is the one who microwaves fish in the cafeteria microwave, something along those lines. I get that, but like tuna, really, it's that big of a fucking deal, and I love he's, what do you think this is? Smell it. No, smell it. And we get a close up of, tuna. That was another thing that really cracked me the fuck up in Queen Coke Francis's video. Oh, it's Tina. I thought for sure it was tuna. And then they keep calling Tina tuna throughout that was really fucking funny. And yeah, but so he's really upset about the smell, and which is how the baby might be French, and the that's a reference to BLR. I don't hate French people. And then you have the right. If you feel like you just have to rewatch Spider-Man 3, but you struggle to get through it, the riff tracks really helps. But the yeah, then she force feeds him the fish, and then later when he's he's really hungry and she's got the I wasn't sure if it was sushi or it certainly resembles in some ways sushi, which is delicious, by the way. If you at all think you could, I would not have. If the first time I heard, oh, eat this raw fish, I was like, no. But then I tried it, and it actually is. It's one of my favorite ways to eat fish, frankly. Now, I think that does cover everything. I liked refrigeration identified as what was this she said, the first sign of civilization or something along those lines. That was genuinely funny. And I also thought they did a really good job making it clear, like, yeah, like you could have, there are some really comfortable, wonderful things about this island, but it's also potentially, yeah, it can be really dangerous there. And the thing about, oh, she made the first camp so close to the beach, that was dangerous once there was a storm. I fucking loved when we saw the storm and the clouds and shit. I know I'm not the only person who saw. There was a fucking like skull in the like you had the eyes and some like mouth, very nicely done. I mean that must have been a visual effect, but yeah, that was it was Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think that might cover everything. I guess I'll just briefly say I did not think they spent too much time in the office or on the island. I thought each part really worked. None of it felt like excessive or indulgent or anything. I didn't think the movie was overlong. Yeah, I respect those who did not like it, but I sure as fuck did. Yeah, I think that covers everything that I had for this one. I really, really, really hope that this is going to mean that Rachel McAdams gets more roles where she can really, like, just absolutely destroy. Like, I was in awe of her. Like, I knew from the moment that I found out she was going to be in the movie, I was like, yes, she can definitely do it. Can't wait to see it. But it was still wonderful to see. Like, god damn, she is talented. I hope that this is just the first of many. Like, please let her just, really go for roles. Get meaty characters where she can really throw. Again, I haven't seen everything she's made, but I'm definitely not used to seeing her like so awkward and so like aggressive and fucking dangerous. Like, she's fucking terrifying. Once you get like the part where she said, "What did you just say to me?" I was genuinely thinking like if the ball cutting scene had come at that exact moment, I would not necessarily have been like completely surprised